And all the outsiders who tap in with us, whether you are watching live or you are watching this on YouTube after the fact, we welcome you back to the We Outside live cast. Simply put, we don't do interviews, we do human conversations. So, with that said, if you are rocking with the real conversations, then you found the right place because that's what we do. We simply have human conversations. We are unscripted, raw, authentic conversation, always bringing you special guests, whether you know these individuals or not. All the people that we talk to are humans with a story, with an experience to share, that they trust us enough to help facilitate that conversation and experience. And without further ado, today is really no different than that. We have tapping in with us live right now, Mr. Emmanuel Bracy, originally from Los Angeles, staying out where our co host and brother Dooney stays in Sacramento, California as well. And yes, by the way, Dooney will be joining us. He just had to get his lunch taken care of real quick. So he'll be popping out here with us in a hot little second. But Emmanuel, what I'm going to do is, because normally I give a little bit of an introduction to our guests, but your story is quite unique and quite powerful, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna allow you the ability and take the time to just introduce yourself to the viewers, whether they're watching live or catching this after the fact on YouTube. Just to take the time to let them know who you are, and then we're just gonna have a conversation, man.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, my name is Emmanuel Bracy. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Um, about 15 years ago, 2010, I was sentenced to 25 years and two strikes in prison for a second-degree robbery. Uh, Upon my arrest, I was also shot 15 times by the Los Angeles Police Department. I had a lot of trials and errors in prison, getting in trouble and doing things that I was supposed to do. And it came a time in my life where something clicked. I call it, they say that the aha moment. And it really stems from a conversation with my mother, to be honest. And just we had a conversation, and she just simply asked me, like, when am I gonna learn my lesson? And growing up, one of the things that always struck a nerve in me is seeing my mother cry or seeing my mother hurt. I really have like a soft spot in my heart for my mother. So after that conversation and hearing the sadness and the hurt in her voice because of hurt that I caused, that kind of just uh, ignited something in me to want to do good and not only to get out of prison but to become a better person. Fast forward 2024, December 2024, I had the opportunity to go in front of the parole board because I was a youth offender. I committed my crime when I was under the age of 26, and due to the fact that I meet the requirements of that law, I was able to go in front of the Board of Parole, California Board of Parole, and about an hour and a half later, I was found suitable and granted parole, and I was released on April 7th, 2025, and I'm here by the grace of God.
Man, thank you for that introduction. And I saw the videos that you sent me earlier. I got to do a little research on you as well. We do minimal research, and we do that for a purpose because we feel that that really allows the ability to have a full, real, and authentic conversation, right? So we know enough, to be dangerous, so to speak, of who you are. But that's what these conversations are about: getting to know you, and obviously getting to know your story as well. So,
So,
um, let's start here. June 24th, 2010. Like you
yes,
said, like you had said in your introduction, that was a day that very much changed your life, and you had also mentioned in your introduction as well, your aha moment. So can you talk about how that aha moment that you had in that conversation with your mother, how that maybe corresponded with the experience of June 24th, 2010, which you were shot, as you had mentioned, over 15 times by the LAPD. I believe you had said in one of your videos that you sent me for $830. Um,
yeah.
what was that's got to be a lot to take in, just going through that experience. But how does that day and what you experienced on that day? I would assume almost losing your life, right? I mean,
Right.
not 15 times. How that day, with respect to that aha moment that you had in that conversation with your mom, how do those two correlate together to bring you where you are today?
So, I heard you mention about how that changed my life, but not only changed my life, so many people's lives that would change it because of a simple choice that I made. You know, a very irresponsible and immature choice I made, and so many lives was affected just because of my action and my choice. And to how that correlate with each other. Well, basically, back then I don't think I cared about anybody but myself, right? And it wasn't even about I don't not I don't think, but it wasn't even about the money. It was for me. I feel like it was the validation. I wanted to show um, the gang I was associated with that I was worthy, that I'm about that lifestyle. So I chose to do this robbery by myself. You know, I chose to do it to show to get that validation and also that acceptance that I've been always looking for since I was a child, right? And from that point to the point that what I call my aha moment, I continued the same thing in prison. I had, this what's the word I'm looking for? Like not so low self esteem, but I felt less than, right, because being on a level 4 yard, right, and not be able to participate in some of the activities, right, made me feel like I was less than, right, that I wasn't worthy. So I showed up in other areas, right, to once again get that validation. And after that conversation with my mother and being up all night just reflecting on that conversation and realize how selfish I was and how um, I will verbally say that I care about my family and I love them, this and that, but my action didn't kind of coincide with um, my words. You feel me?
Yep.
So um, after that conversation, it's kind of looking myself in the mirror and just realizing, all the hurt I was causing because of choices in my action. And it just made me want to get on a better track and just made me want to do better and want to not hurt my family no more because like you said, like you said, how my life changed, but also today I look at it as how many lives were affected because of that. And not even like I had my nephew, right? He was my niece and my nephew, they weren't even around when this happened. But being in prison and I formed a relationship with them while I was incarcerated. But them always asking me, are you gonna be able to come home for my birthday? Are you gonna be up for my birthday?
That's got to be a lot.
So just think about, like, even though they're around, they're still affected by these choices that I made. And these happened 15 years ago. They're only My oldest niece is what, 10 years old, and my youngest nephew is, I believe, 4 or 3. But they're still affected by these choices.
It's a lot, man. That's a lot because one thing what you're really pretty much talking about right there, and Dooney and I talk about it all the time when we have these types of conversations when it comes to gun violence, or violence of any kind. And then I'm gonna have a quick question for you, real quick. The collateral damage, right? The collateral damage of not just how it affects you, but how it affects you, your family, your friends, everybody around you, your support system, your care.
Right.
And that goes our brother. What up? What up, Dooney? What up, Dooney?
Duty.
Greetings, King. Greetings, King. Y'all
What,
having my type of conversation right now.
there you go. There you go. You good? You got your belly nice and full. You ready for some good conversation?
Man, I have to eat, bro. I got to start taking better care of myself. Bro. I have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've been going
Man,
all
quick
day
question
without
I have,
eating, bro.
man, it's a true story. We gotta be selfish. We gotta make sure ourselves are taken care of. I had a quick question for you, Emmanuel. If you could share for people that might not know when you said a level 4 yard, can you just explain what that means for anybody that might not understand or comprehend what that means when you're in the monastery? That's what I always call it because that's the words from our brother right there, Dooney. So when you were in the monastery, what does it mean when you're on a level 4 yard? So people understand that.
Basically, the prison system is kind of they have different levels. You have your high security level 4, and you have your a level under that, which is level 3, which is not really high security, but it's still somewhat of a high security. Then you have your lower levels, 2 and 1. So based upon my crime and my behavior in the county jail, kind of they take that and how do I say it? They calculate points. I guess it's a point system.
Age,
Because
your
oh,
age,
yep,
where
age
you
takes a
grew
factor.
up,
Yep,
all
age.
your back history factors.
Right. Age takes a factor in it, plays a part in it, and also if you're a gang member, um, you have any association to any type of gangs or whatever, and they accumulated these points, and based on the total amount of points you have, you're placed on certain yards. And unfortunately for me, I had to start off on the high security level four, and yes, that's what that means.
No, I can appreciate that. And you had mentioned something else as well when you were experiencing that level four experience. It made you feel less than, right? So if you could speak about that, and then the second part of my question, there's what you said in your introduction as well. You mentioned that with who you were hanging with and who you were running with, that led you to the events of June 24, 2010, that you decided to go and try to commit that robbery yourself, right? So, what was also what led to you into thinking, I've got to go show these people for this reason, and for that reason, this is why I'm going to go do this. Was there any part of you that made you feel less than, or you needed to either prove to somebody, whether it be yourself or who you were running with, or seeking any kind of validation that ultimately led up to that from an internal standpoint, if that makes sense?
Well, so it kind of goes back since childhood, right? And I always felt that I had to fight for attention, acceptance, validation from home. Um, I remember like growing up, and I always felt like nothing I did was never good. Wasn't good enough. No matter if I had a good report card, no matter if I cleaned the whole house, no matter if I babysat my siblings, or nothing I did I felt like was ever good enough. And then like being outside, like basketball was my first love, and I wasn't ever the fastest, I wasn't ever the best, and I always felt like I had this mindset I had to prove myself. However, when I started associating, with the local gang members that was in my neighborhood, and I noticed, if I was to get into a fight and I performed well, that would be celebrated, and I like that feeling. You know,
Validation.
I liked that acknowledgement whenever I did something that was, um, let's say, wasn't good. Whether it was fighting, whether it was robbing something, whether it was, hopping in the car, whatever the case may be, and to come back and to be talked about. I started getting addicted to that type of um, acceptance, right? Negative acceptance. So that kind of just um, transpired to adulthood, and so with my crime, it was me and I have two co-defendants, um, and we will rob check cash in stores, and uh, I decided the one that I was shot by the Los Angeles Police Department. I decided to do that one by myself, and in my mind, I feel like I didn't even know what to do. I wanted to do it myself, and I remember after I committed that robbery, I called um, one of the guys that was from the gang I was from, and I told him, like, I did this by myself. He's like, "What? You went to work by yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah." And his reaction, his response gave me a sign of validation, like you're really with this. But that's how immature my thought process was back then.
How old were you
And
when that occurred?
I was 22 years old. So then now I'm in prison, and it was sad was so I was on Lancaster B yard. This was 2013, and when I got there, it was damn near. It was like a reunion. Sad to say, but it was guys that I used to play basketball with that was there. It was Crips that I knew from the area. It was a lot of my homies that was there, and they kind of like welcomed me and felt like they had to protect me because I was in a wheelchair. But I really didn't like that, right? Because I felt like not understanding it's a safety reason. So just being in a wheelchair, when things would happen on the yard, they'd be like, man, stay in, like don't come out. But I felt like, you know, in my mind, like you guys were like trying to like not belittle me, but um uh, it made me feel like I was less than, like I mentioned earlier. But understanding that they had to do that because it was security purpose, like I was a liability. So then I would show up in other areas. I would sell drugs. I would, you know, pass contraband just to be a part. You know, but that is how I thought. Very immature.
So definitely trying to fill something in you, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit as far as like growing up in your household as a child. It just seems like there was something maybe missing for you, seeking out kind of that something, right? To fill what that is, even in just sharing that last story for you as well. Before I ask you my next, from what you just talked about, I just want to take a quick break. Dooney, I mean, this is a story that we hear a lot. I know it's things that you've experienced, um, and you're growing up as well. Any light that you want to shed, Dooney, on, not just Emmanuel's story, but there are a lot of individuals and young kings like Emmanuel out here, and sadly will continue to be out here. Any thoughts that you want to share? Any advice that you can offer to people? It doesn't really matter what age they are, of what they can maybe try to do to fill that, let's just call it that proverbial hole within themselves internally, with something of love and growth, as opposed to something more so seeking validation from others for the wrong reasons.
I hear what you're saying, bro, but like where we come from is permanent. It's like it plagues our community, bro. Uh, in our community, we don't have them positive black role models to seek, to follow, or those dope male figures in our family structure to go to talk to about these type of things, right?
Hmm.
Because those are the ones that give us the self-esteem and the self-confidence, right? The uncles, the big brothers, and the pops, right? That those are the ones that's supposed to give us the validation, but we don't get it from there, so we go in our community and get it. It's We want attention, and if it's not positive for the positive things we do, I totally identify with this story, right? I did everything, and it doesn't matter. So now that doesn't matter to us anymore because we're not being recognized for it. So that negative tension becomes better than no attention at all. And the more
Mhm.
negative we be, the more validation we get. So the worse we get till we wind up in prison or in a grave, seeking validation that we should have gotten our community, right? And but when we go inside the monasteries, we understand that what we seeking is inside of us. See, that's what he learned. That aha moment was, whoa, whoa, right? I had this same aha moment, right? That's where growth comes, right? We go through that pain and we go through that growth process and become healed from all those things in the past. All those things that we didn't get, we get it from ourselves now, and we get it from God. That's the only place you can find that is from yourself and God, man.
That's a
Mhm.
true story, and I very much feel with what you said there, right? And Emmanuel, you were talking about it earlier, right? Like, you do something and somebody congratulates you for it, right? And if you've never had that congratulations or that pat on the back, it feels good, right? It doesn't necessarily
Right.
matter in the moment why you're getting it. You're just like, yo, this one's saying good job. This one's saying good job. Wow. I like that. It almost becomes like a drug user chasing the dragon, right? It's
Yep.
like, I need that. I need that dopamine fix again,
It's the
right?
same thing. It's just no different, bro, than you trying to, if you got a dad in your life, you trying to impress him. We don't
Yep.
have that, bro. It's the same thing. We can't even try to categorize and make it anything different. It's the same thing, bro.
I
It's the
want to chime
same.
up something Dooney said earlier.
No,
Um,
go ahead.
how he said like basically not having no positive role models around. So for me, like I was kind of fortunate in a sense. So my little back history. So like my parents, they migrated from Panama like back like in I think early '80s, right? So compared to my friends, my close friends that I grew up with, like I was probably the only one that grew up like in a two-parent household. Even though my parents had divorced like when I was like around one or two, I think. I still had a stepmother and a stepfather, so in both households, I had a two-parent household. Always had like my room. I was fortunate in a sense like that, right? And my father was, I could say, like a positive role model in the sense because I watched my father go to work, you know, sometimes 6 days a week. He retired from the LAUSD, and I didn't in my immediate household. It wasn't like no drugs going on, or one of my parents was ever no gang member or nothing like that. However, nobody want to be like my father. I know LAUSD. I wanted to be like the homie that's out here, selling drugs and got all the jewelry and nice cars and all the girls was flocking to him. That's what I wanted to be. I
Why
didn't
do you
know
think that
that was
is, though?
huh?
Why do you think that is?
That I didn't want to.
That you chose that over that?
Maybe I feel like because of the attraction they got, like um I wanted to have the girls, I wanted to have the jewelry, I wanted to, I wanted to have the respect. Like it wasn't this. I'm just saying this is how I was as a child. This is the immature mentality I had. I didn't want to be like my dad. Like that wasn't cool. Like no, my friends don't want to be like him. They when we see like the homie on the block and he putting out a wad of money and everybody's bowing down to him and he has all the girls and the nice cars, like that's what we wanted to be like.
Hmm.
It wasn't appealing, to have in my opinion at that age, to have a nine to
To have a
five.
black role model, you was following somebody.
Huh?
You was following somebody.
Yeah, that exactly that. I was all the negative role models. That's what I was following. Yeah, you know.
Huh.
But now that I'm older, it was my dad I should have been like. Now he's retired and he's living his life. But you know, um, like I said, it was as a child, it was just always gravitated towards that negative role model. Like I had one of my close friends, like we're like the same age. I think he's like probably a year older than me, and I just remember always looking up to him because he had all the respect in the world. Like he he was the type that like people feared him, and I always would try to like wanted to be like him. And it was crazy. It was sick, but that's how I was as a child. Like that's who I looked up to, and like I said, just always wanted to do something just to get that validation from him. And so like how you said like the positive role models, like for me I feel like I did have positive role models. Like I had my father who retired from the Los Angeles Unified School District. I have an uncle in Florida who was a detective. But then I had
How present were they in your life, though? Like, how present were they?
um I mean my father was present,
Came to the streets to get you out the streets?
so because he kept me shield from that, I did a lot of stuff behind his back. You feel me? And he was didn't really kind of had like a leash on me, so to speak. So a lot of stuff that was done was behind his back. He worked late from 2 to 10:30. So all my dirt was done like in
While he
between
was
the
gone.
hours. Right.
I think that's an important question, Dooney, with what you just brought up there. Were they present? Because I grew up in a two-parent household. I was lucky enough to do that, but and my father was there, but like he wasn't there, right? And it's similar in nature to what you were talking about, Emmanuel, because my father worked overnights in a warehouse for 40 years, um,
Hmm.
and in a liquor warehouse of all places, right? And he was an alcoholic. Heavy alcoholic. I mean, he still technically is an alcoholic. He hasn't touched, drink in a very long time. But I remember, I was in second grade and he went into rehab, like a long rehab stint, and it affected him a lot. But like he wasn't really there for holidays. Like he was, but he wasn't. He was working Thanksgiving. He was working Christmas. So, and again, he was sleeping when I was awake, right? So even though I knew that there was the care there, I knew he was doing what he needed to do to play that man role in the house as far as bringing paychecks home and providing for your family. That's only one level
Right.
of parenting, right? So it's It's tough because just the way that things are built, it's like even when they're there, in some cases they might not be, or they are there.
I agree. I agree
You
with
can't
that.
like get away from them to be off that leash, right?
Right, and I agree with that. Like same thing. Because of the hours that my father worked, damn near like on Saturdays he sleep during through the whole day until like late, and it's like so like I feel like he was there, but he could did a better job of being there in the physical aspect
I
as
was
far
gonna
as
ask. I was
yeah.
gonna ask. Do you have kids?
I have a stepson, yes.
Right. And what is your presence like? And will you allow him to have that same leash that you had with your stepfather? And why not?
So would I put the same leash on him?
No, would you let him have that same long leash that you had to be out there at those times? Or would you
Well,
shorten
no,
that leash and be present?
no. So what I mean by I had a short leash, meaning I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't spend the night. I couldn't go out. So I did a lot of stuff. I snuck and did it behind his back. That's what I meant by that.
Right. That's
Right.
what I mean. What I mean by
So
if you had a short leash, then your ass wouldn't have been going to stand at nobody's house, bro.
right. But
You have
so
a
no,
long leash, bro, that allowed him to let you go out and do what you want to do. That short leash, I'm gonna snatch you up right here when you think you're gonna get to the front door and you ain't going.
exactly. So so now I feel like how what my approach, like what I try to tell my wife and my mother-in-law who's raising my stepson, to kind of like give him a little bit of slack, right? But don't give him give him a little bit of slack, right? Because I feel like when everything's always no, 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 now he's gonna start doing stuff behind your back. So like let him earn your trust. You know, if he wants to go to a football game, okay, go to the football game,
Mhm.
but be back at this certain time. And if he beats back and he come back at curfew or before curfew, reward that behavior. But if not, then okay, now we're not going to reward negative behavior. And I feel like when you don't, in my opinion, when you don't let a child, um, you know, go out and be a teenager, I feel like now they're going to start doing things behind your back, and I think that's not what we want,
Rebellion.
huh?
Rebellion.
Yeah, exactly. Now, like now they're gonna start doing things behind your back, and now getting involved in certain things, because you're not allowing them to be a teenager. And I think it's very important, in my opinion, to let a teenager be a teenager to a certain extent.
And do you think because of your experiences, right, and your life experience, that you could be a different father than what your stepfather was for you, being how?
Absolutely. My step. So I learned a lot of great things from my stepfather and my father, and there's a lot of things that I would do different. You know, that they taught me a lot of things to help me who I am today. But like I said, the whole approach of being a parent would be totally different. And I think because of what I've learned from them and their parenting kind of helped me to to kind of go about parenting a whole different way. And more so, like I said, my stepfather was more so of a hands-on type of father. Is very hands-on, and I don't think that did anything for me. Versus my father was more of a conversation type of like trying to figure out what's going on, right? And I think that kind of worked better for me.
What do you mean by hands on?
Hands on, like you do something, it's no like warning, you're gonna get your ass whooped.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because hands on. When I think hands on,
Oh
that
no, no,
means,
no, yeah, 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 yeah.
oh, I'm gonna catch you,
Nah,
right? I'm hands
nah.
on, meaning wherever you at, my
As far
pup
as
be
discipline,
there. My pup is not gonna do no falling or none of that. I'm gonna catch him and put him
yeah,
back on his feet so he can roll.
yeah, yeah.
But
I
yeah,
should
man, we
clarify.
got to call it what it is, bro, because those things is still prevalent. And to me, I don't think it did me any justice when you just could have just talked to me.
Exactly. Yeah. So
It,
he was more so in regards to discipline, more so like hands on, like it wasn't no conversation. It was like it's more so like and my mother too. Like this is what it is. Do as I say. But now, and I feel like they feel like that didn't work for me. So they're how they raise my nieces and nephews. Their grandkids is totally different. Now I feel like now they have a voice and they could actually And it's crazy. Like my mother told my niece to do something a while ago, and she's like, "Well, why?" or something. I'm like, "What? What am I listening? Like, am I hearing right?" Like, but I feel like, and she explained to her right. But I think that's more that's better than how we were raised. Like, it was more so we didn't me and my sister weren't allowed to ask why or how come or nothing like that.
It
Right.
was
And
just more
I
because I
think
said
there's
so
a
type
fine
of shit.
line, man.
Yep.
It's really a
like,
fine line because it's like we got to where we don't say nothing. And now
yeah.
these kids say anything. And I'm
And
looking like, Mom, that's your grandbaby, but there's no way you would have you right now I'm in my 50s and you still won't put up with that from me. And I still have to give you that
right.
respect. How can the kids speak to you how they speak to you? I don't understand. Sure,
Yes.
you can whoop them, but it wasn't even the whoopings that you gave me. It was the stern words and that look that you gave me and that discipline that made me respect you. It
Yeah.
was like the fear of God you put in me, right?
No. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's something important to touch on right quick, Dooney, because it made me think that, like, going to the fear factor, right? Like that's only gonna work so much in the sense of looking to earn that respect, right? Because fear is one thing or one emotion or feeling, respect is another, right? So like it goes back to that old question, would you rather be feared or respected? Ultimately as well, and it's like it's a fine line that you walk, and I like how you had put it earlier, Emmanuel, when Dooney had asked you, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to give my son enough of a leash, but I'm still holding it at the same time, right? Because I think that's a challenge as parents, in the sense that we obviously all want the best for our children, right? But at the same time, we have to find, and I don't know if it's even really one that we could ever find, we have to try to determine what's the line or that threshold that we don't want to cross, in the sense of sometimes we got to let the young ones fall on their face by themselves, right? Instead of what you were talking about doing, being there to catch them in certain spots. Yeah, you got to be there to catch them. But I don't think let me ask it this way. Are we doing them a service as parents or patriarchs as a whole, or even matriarchs, if we're there to catch them every single time
Yes,
that
you
they
are.
fall?
Yes, you are. That's your job.
I disagree though because
And
what are you
I'm
learning?
saying to the
If
point
you're
where
if you're if
if
you're
my
catching that
son
time, where are you
falls,
learning?
I'm saying if he falls, he cries. He has a response. I say, son, it's okay to cry. Are you hurt? It's a difference. Are you crying because you're embarrassed, or are you crying because you actually hurt? We have that conversation. We pick him up and let him go. We don't pick him. We don't leave him the fall and let him figure out what he's feeling in his
Nope.
head. That's why all of us has ended up in the situations we are, because our parents wasn't hands on like that.
No, I'm with you. I understand
That's
what you're
what I
saying,
mean by
Emmanuel.
that.
I want to hear how with your respectful difference of opinion to that question.
No, I see exactly what he's saying. And, for me, I feel like the best teacher is like your own. The best teacher is life lessons, like kind of like your own experience. And I feel like depending on what it is, right? Um, my stepson, like if he's fall, I'm gonna be there right there, right? But I do want him to try to figure it out a little bit, because I feel like it's a lesson in that, it's a teaching in that. Now, if it comes to a point where he can't figure out, now that's where I step in at. But I want him to to somehow trying to figure things out. And like I feel like, and this is just my opinion, right? So, growing up, me and like my close friends, the people I grew up with, we were like what was so much in the like very very so independent, right? I see kids today that's like like my stepson, he needs a ride to the barbershop. One of my little cousins, like like we were riding bikes to the barbershop. We were like more so independent. We were catching the bus. We were doing things, and a lot of like in my experience with a lot of the kids that I talking about family members, it looks like you know um, they kind of enable them a
You're
little bit
coddled.
versus huh.
Coddled.
Yeah, versus how I was growing up, and that's what I mean. Like I wish that like um, just kind of like wanted to have them be more so independent, kind of figure things out a little bit. I'm gonna be right there. Right, I'm not gonna make them crash, but if you fall, put a band-aid on it and let's keep going.
Maybe I'd be like, you don't even need that. You don't even need that Band-Aid, grandson. It ain't that much. It ain't that big of a cut, bro. Let's
Yeah.
go. I'm gonna show you what to put Band-Aids on. You
Nah,
understand what I'm saying? Kind of like,
yeah.
not like my grandson or the children I'm around. I allow them to like nature figure it out. That's how
Right.
I am. But
Exactly.
those times when I needed to ask them questions, no one's there to answer them questions for me.
Mm.
It's your job to be there, not still out there and figure out what that is right there because they don't know what the hell that is, bro.
Yeah.
They don't have no concept.
No,
You know what I mean? I understand
no,
what you're saying.
you're right. No, when that in that sense, I definitely agree with you. But I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
speaking
what I
of
mean
like,
by that. Like, no, never leave your, like it's different, bro. That time and now, it's like kids don't know how to wash dishes, bro.
Mhm.
man,
They don't know
real
how to
talk.
sweep the floor, bro. They go to the parents for everything, bro.
Hey,
It's weird to me because it's like, when do you be independent?
exactly.
They're only independent when they want to do what they want to do, but they're dependent when it comes to the needs from the parent.
Yeah.
You can buy
I
me what
just
you want to, but I'm gonna do what I want to. Kind of
yeah,
like,
I just feel like the culture is different now. Like it may be like I don't like to speak for everybody, but like I feel like my generation we kind of you know there was a lot of abuse and stuff like that we normalized. So I think now as us as parents we take a different approach, with the kids now and kind of like let them not raise them how we were raised. And that is my observation, like outside looking in. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I feel like that could be the situation right there.
mhm.
You know, we
No,
either get a pass
I
to
think that
family,
makes sense.
huh?
And I was saying, I think that makes perfect sense. And you both have very valid points. And I asked the question the way that I did specifically because the underlying context of it was, Dooney, you're right, bro. Like at the end of the day, we're gonna be there to help pick up and support whether it's our grandchildren, our children, anyone that we can offer support to, in any manner, right? And you know, Emmanuel, you as well saying no. Sometimes we got to let them fall on their face, right? So we got both parts of it because in some cases there's we can get that support, we can get feedback, we can get shared experiences, but sometimes people and I'll just give a quick example of myself, right? To really bring together the context of what we're talking about right now. Like when I quit drinking alcohol 4.5 years ago, right? Chelsea came to me on a Saturday morning, was like, yo, you need to stop drinking because it's basically at a point now where you continue to choose drinking because I was going down a very, very bad pathway. And I come from a family of addicts and
Right.
alcoholics. And she was like, or the family, right? That's what she could do in the moment because that's all she could control from a support standpoint. I'm the one that had to decide, all right, I'm never going to pick up an alcoholic drink again and consume it and make sure I'm consciously making that effort. And that's not to say, to your point of what you were talking about, Dooney, like I was at my lowest of lows as a person at that point because I was letting a substance control me,
Right.
right? But she couldn't stop that. What she could do is she could share her feelings of why it's a problem collectively, not just for the family, which it very much was, but for me as an individual, because she cared about me enough, right, to do that. And then when I made that conscious effort, she was like, well, yes, I'm going to be here to support you on that path.
I think
So
that's a little different in the fact that you're a grown man and we're talking about kids with indolence in mind who Agmandala isn't fully
yep.
capable of understanding and rationalizing consequences of their actions
Yes.
or just really figuring those things out. They just haven't got to that point yet.
No, correct, correct. And the reason I use that example is because of something that you said before that we are children. We're still the children living in our adult bodies, right? And in some cases, based on some of our experiences, we've not fully grown that. And scientifically, yes, we have, but from an emotional standpoint, we have not grown to that level. So that's why I shared that as the experience, right? Because I use that to hide my emotions. I use that as a coping mechanism because I was never taught emotionally as the child that we're talking about right now of how to do that, right? And so that's why I was just making the point of that, because you're very spot on. Because yes,
So
scientifically, my shit grew, but emotionally, I was nowhere
So
close.
doing it right. So like, all right. So like a kid, right? Each time he falls, you pick him up. He falls again, you pick him up. He falls again, you picks him up. So I'm thinking like, what are you teaching him? He gets old. He knows that if I fall, Pop's gonna pick me up. I get in the jam, Pop's gonna he's gonna come bail me up. So I feel like, in my opinion, right, I don't feel like it's important to, yes, be there and support them, but also allow them to kind of correct their wrongs, because it's like, if you keep picking me up when I fall, you're not really preparing me. And this is my opinion. You're not really preparing me for adulthood, because what you're teaching me is like, I can go do whatever. I know Pops is gonna build me up.
No, that's not never that, bro. I'm
But
not that type. I'm not that type. I
no,
let my grandson
I said
climb
that
to the
because
top of that tree. I let that kid climb up to the top of that tree and have fun. If you fall down, I'm gonna check you out, make sure you all right, and let you understand the difference between you being embarrassed, right? And
mhm,
then or you actually being hurt, right? Like for me, I don't watch sports because like if I got hurt, no one never knew it ever, even to this day. And I played sports my whole life.
right.
No, I tell nobody about none of that, right? But I still wish I had somebody there to be like, bro, how to process that, right? That didn't it helped me, but it turned me into that. Remember the person that we did all the falling on our own? Where in the hell did we end up, bro? We did all the falling on our own because your dad wasn't there because you didn't let him be, because you was doing it behind his back. All the falling I was doing, my mom was at the house. And
Right.
where did we end up, bro?
We end up in prison.
Ah.
Yeah.
And all my people, when they fathers there to make sure when they failed that they had that conversation, that love, we're not talking about cuddling nobody, bro. We saying when you have this experience, let's talk about it, bro. What'd you learn from that? How'd that
Mhm.
make you feel? And what would you do differently? That same process that you went through in prison, bro, these kids should get it out here in the relationships with their parents, bro, is what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying?
And
We're not talking about every time a baby falls, you know what I mean? You
also,
him up like that. No, we like have that dialogue and have a conversation about whatever it is that you're going through in life. It could be not just playing. It could be you bumped your head on something or you having a conflict at school or whatever. I want to be there to have that conversation. I don't want you to figure out yourself. I figured it out myself, and a lot of people got hurt, and a lot of people in the community got hurt by me trying to figure it out myself.
and also too, though, is also, as far as like, as a parent, to kind of have that relationship with the child where they feel comfortable coming in talking to you. Because I'm not saying I couldn't go talk to my parents, my stepfather, my dad, or my stepmother, my mother, but I didn't feel comfortable going and talking to them about things, right? Because fear of what's going to happen after that. So I think it's
Mhm.
important too to also kind of develop that relationship where you can have a relationship with your child where they feel comfortable talking to you. Um, they don't have no fear or no shame or anything like that, and be able to have that, create a safe space for them to come talk to you when they're going through certain things, as a teen, or even as an adult as well.
That's built on trust, bro.
Yeah,
Correct.
That
Which
means
is
being
something
I
that
wish
you
present,
I
know.
had that.
and having that dialogue, like I was just talking about. He said we don't need. We do need that because in those times we say I can go to pops, I can go to my grandpa. He gonna talk to me and he not gonna respond this way. I seen him respond to me when I fell out that tree when he told me not to go up there. How he responded,
Right,
right? It don't necessarily got to be a good talk. I mean, I'm not yelling and screaming, but I told you not to go up in that tree, and I let you go up there just so your ass can fall. Pick you up, bandage you up, but I told you not to go up in that tree. But he's gonna tell me that he went up in that tree and fell.
right.
Even if I'm not present, because we have that hands-on relationship. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean when I mean being there for that child to pick that child up. That means to be that support, not no crutch. We don't
Mhm.
do crutches.
Yeah.
Your ass better
And you know,
get
it's
up and
crazy. Shit,
walk.
I just developed that relationship with my mother, where I could talk to her about anything. It wasn't like that as a kid. I wish I had that support when I was younger. You know, I felt like things could have potentially turned out different with me growing up. But as of now, like we have a very good relationship, and I'm able to talk to her. And I wish I had that like growing up. You know.
Is it because of where you went, that where you gained that? Remember, I was telling Mike, we talk about having conversations and not understanding that this back and forth conversation is a skill set.
Right.
Learning how to communicate is a skill set. Some people are
Definitely.
born naturally with it, and some people are not. And do you think because of where you went and the work you did on yourself allowed you to come now and have a total different conversation with your mother, being that you're in a different place now?
Absolutely. It took for me to do a lot of healing, a lot of forgiveness. You know. Um, and with me being with with me coming to a place where I'm able to forgive and take accountability for my actions and not just pointing the blame and be able to heal from a lot of things that transpired in my childhood. I was able, you know, to see things from my mother's perspective and understand she raised me the way she was raised, and so she didn't have a selection of parenting tools in her toolbox. You know,
Mhm.
so when I was able to you know to come to those terms and look at things, you know, that way, I was able, you know, to um, work on a relationship with my mother. Because, like I said, you know how they said, a mother's it's like a son's first love, right? That's like kind of like their first woman in their life, kind of, right?
Mhm.
So, and growing up, I felt like I always had to fight for her attention. And then, like, I didn't really spend that much time with my mother because right after I was born, I'm the oldest. My sister was down. She was pregnant with my sister, like, you know, a few years after that. And then my
Mhm.
sister was born, so I didn't really spend that much time growing up with my mother, like, you know, on the intimate level.
Right.
And so I felt like growing up, as a kid, felt like I loved her more than she loved me. Not saying that was true. That's how I felt. And because of the things that's transpired in my life as a child, I developed certain type of resentments. But once I came to a place where I was able to do that work on myself, that internal work, and heal, and by me healing, I was able to forgive and get rid of those resentments. I was able to come and from an empathetic perspective and have and better the relationship with me and my mother. Now we're so tight, we're close. Like I love her to death, and we communicate on a regular. I could talk to her. She's different person now. Like one day we had a disagreement, and she called me and she apologized. My mom ain't never apologized growing up. Like, but you know, she also did some work on herself, so we're able to have a solid bond with each other. You know.
And isn't it sad, bro, that we have to go into the monasteries to really do that work?
Yeah.
That and appreciate you out here doing what you're doing because we need that in our community, bro. We need to
Sure.
do this work in our community for the kids that don't have the parents that don't communicate like that.
Yes.
It takes
Most
a
You know what I'm
definitely.
village.
saying?
We talk
You know,
about it
make
all the time. It takes a
don't have
village.
to be the father, bro. Don't have to be the big brother. Just got they got to get it from somewhere because we wasn't
Positive
fathers,
role model.
right? We was out. We and think about it. We got that from prison inside of a monastery, bro.
Hey,
People that
they,
made us
yeah,
reflect, made us think, and that cared about us, bro. To make us do the work that challenged us, right?
yeah,
You know, we so need that out here, bro. It'll definitely change our community, bro. That good
definitely.
talk about gun violence, bro. We need to do some healing. We need to do some healing.
That's where it starts with the healing. You gotta like feel like you have to heal, you know, in order to move forward and to become the person that you want to be. So I feel like it starts with the healing.
Yes, sir.
I
I
agree.
agree. Mhm.
There you go. It's important, and we got about 10 minutes left. I just want to do a time check for us because I want to make sure that we get in any important points of what you want to discuss or talk about, Emmanuel, before we do. Um, but do you think, kind of from what you said there with respect to that experience early in your life, where you had those feelings of resentment in the relationship with your mother, you had obviously talked about earlier, with respect to the relationship that you had with your father. Do you feel that that maybe led to any decision making and choices that ultimately led to that experience and up to that experience of June 24th,
Yes.
2010?
Well, in no way am I putting the blame or pointing the finger at them. However, that played a part in the choice that I made. You know,
Contributing
Influenced it. Yeah,
factors.
like influenced it.
yes, exactly. It did
It's
for
called
sure.
contributing factors.
Yeah. So yeah, and it led up, like, I didn't just wake up and then this happened. Like it led up to that moment. But for sure, like my childhood and my upbringings and my relationship with my parents was kind of like the root of the choices that I made influence the choices, and so yeah, to answer your question, but like, I say that without pointing any blame, because at the end of
Of
the day,
course.
I'm the one that made that choice, not them.
Right.
Yeah, because like Duty said, it's contributing factors that lead to the decisions that we make as individuals. And you are very much, obviously, clearly man enough to accept those responsibilities, right?
Exactly.
Um, so let me ask you this: if you had the opportunity, and you have the opportunity right now, to anybody, because you mentioned earlier that you were 22 when that major event happened in your life, that really changed things for you and put you onto the path that you are today. What's any advice that you would maybe be able to offer to the young kings and even queens, from growing up till that age of 22, when life really took a turn from you, through that healing, through that experience that you've gone through? What's any piece of advice that you'd like to offer to anybody out there today? And let's be clear, people, that also is for anybody that might be above that age. We're definitely talking to the youth right now, but there's people that are older than anybody on this panel right now that probably need to hear this as well, because they're still healing as individuals, as we all are collectively. We're always works in progress. So any advice that you want to share through your journey of healing, Emmanuel?
So I
May I
kind
ask,
of, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Uni.
may I ask it this way?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because his experience is a unique experience, right?
Correct.
But
We're talking in general, right?
so what would you tell your young self now?
There you go. That's a good way to do it.
So I mentioned this earlier, but I feel like I wish that I was told this, right? And I would tell myself to be mindful of the choices that I make, because they just don't impact me. They impact everybody that's around me. And I didn't really realize that until you know I'm adult, and looking back and see how, like they said, a ripple effect, and how much people was hurt, and how many relationships that was damaged. It's just so much, that transpired based on a single choice that I made. So I would, I just want to say something. So I had one of my homies that was from the gang I was associated with. He's still in prison, and he had hit me one day. We're talking, and he like, man, I feel like it's my fault, everything that happened to you. And remind you, this is a well respected gang member. He's a person that people kind of bow down to, and not glorifying that this is what it is. And he said that, he like, man, I feel like it's all my fault. I wish I would ever introduce you to that life. Now I tell him like, nah, man, I made that choice. But I said it to say, like, I imagine if I would have died on that day, right? How would that have impacted him, right? How would that affect him to be a father to his child? How would that affect him to be, a husband to his wife, or,
Mhm.
but it all stems from the choice I made. So I would just I would just encourage, young people out there to always be mindful of choices that you make, because, once again, they just don't impact you. They impact, all your loved ones, your close friends, grandmother, mothers, and and then the list goes on.
The community, the businesses, the
That's,
firemen, the ambulance drivers, like the doctors, like everyone's affected by our.
and that sounds so simple, but just an example, like my co-defendant, right? Um, he's still incarcerated, and he lost his grandma a few months ago. So just thinking about the choices that we make. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't there to be at the funeral he wasn't even going to see his grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Before she left Earth, and I can only imagine how the choices, you know, that he made, how that had influenced, how that impacted her, and what
Mm-hmm.
he's going through right now because he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there to see his grandmother before she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
So yeah,
One of the pretty much the final thing, unless something else pops up, because we're coming up on time here, but I think it's important to bring up and discuss. In one of the videos that you had shared with me earlier today, Emmanuel, you said, and not necessarily in these words, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But you were like, again, going through that experience on June 24th of 2010, getting shot over 15 times, right? You realize that you're still here for a reason, right? Do you have, because things happen, everything happens for a reason. I'm very much a believer of that, good, bad, or indifferent. Looking back at it now, do you have any semblance of understanding of why you feel that the creator and who you believe in and what you believe in allowed you to live and see all these days further? Or is that something that you're kind of just still experiencing to find out what your purpose as an individual for still being on this earth here today with your physical life being spared that day, if you will?
I feel like it's both. I feel like it's me still trying to figure out, and I feel like also me being here to share my story because I'm pretty sure there's another a kid out there that's 15, 16 that grew up that's growing up the same way I grew up. So it's important for me to be there and say, okay, I know what you're going through. I experienced this type of upbringing. However, if you go this way, this could happen. But if you go this way, this can't happen. It's less likely to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
they're just to kind of be like a role model with lived experience to stop someone from throwing their life away like I threw my life away.
I can very much appreciate and respect that as well. I appreciate you sharing that. Dooney, before we start to get out of here in a few, from getting to know this king, from getting to know his story, getting to have this conversation with him today. Any final takeaways, thoughts, or anything that you just want to share before we officially let him have the last say with anything that he wants to share before we sign off here today?
I say, I just appreciate, bro, you sharing your story because there's a lot of kids, right, that's making the same choice you made that came from a two-parent home, right, and was kind of well off, was okay, right? They wasn't
Mhm.
struggling, and it's hard for us from the streets to understand. Damn, why they come over here? We want to be over there, right? So,
Right,
and so now it gives me a little more insight because I could never understood it, even though it was happening when I was a kid. I just never understand it. You eating steaks, we eating hot dogs and noodles over here, and you at my house. I want to go to your house, bruh. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
right,
for
right,
real. You know what I'm saying? But I understand because there's a certain love, there's a certain acceptance, there's a certain acknowledgement, right, that we get from our people. We just have to take what we created and make it into something positive, but we can keep going to each other for that, from to the community, bro. That's all we did, is wind up going to the community, bro, for what we was lacking in the household. And that's what the community's for, because not all households get it, right? Uh,
right.
so I appreciate you for sharing your story, bro. And I'm sure we're gonna be using this, and I'm gonna be calling on you, bro, when we go to certain places, bro. You need to holler at some folks, bro, so they
For
can
sure, man.
understand, bro. You
I'm
need
I'm
to,
I'm, I'm here, Dooney.
for sure.
Hey
Yes,
man, I
sir.
still remember, you came to CMF, man, playing like, that was big for us. Like, seeing a person that came from where we from and coming back. I still have the picture that we took in the gym from the 3-on-3 that me and my boy Larry Roach put together. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
uh, yeah. So, like I said, man, you were very influential. Towards us
Right.
coming back in, and I
Yes,
appreciate you for that, man. And also, I
man.
appreciate both you guys for having me. And man, and anywhere where I could share my story to touch somebody, if I could just make one person reflect or think about their decision, I feel like I'm doing God's work. So I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity and the platform to share myself with with the
Yes, sir.
viewers.
No, we appreciate you. We appreciate the trust, sharing your story, your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences, because it's hard for some people to have that trust. And I know you've had that relationship with Dooney as well, so that definitely helps facilitate the conversation. But I appreciate the trust that you had in me and being a part of this conversation as well. And Dooney already knows, and all of our family members that have been outside with us know the door is always open to you. If we could ever be of continued to support you, your mission, anything that you've got going on, you just let us know. You say the word. You are always welcome back on this platform. Anytime that you got something that you need to share or want to share, people need to know. And that's a true story. We've had multiple people pop back out here with us a couple times before. So we thank you. Before I officially sign off, do you have any final thoughts or final words that you want to share, Emmanuel, with everybody before
I just want to say we outside.
I mean, you know it is. You know what it is. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, this is, man, yo, Dooney, when I get out there, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, of course, this has been another live edition of the We Outside live cast with our special guest, Emmanuel Bracy. If you've tapped in, recently to this part of the conversation, the beautiful thing is in just a couple hours or by tomorrow morning, it is going to be officially loaded up onto our YouTube channel, the We Outside live cast. And simply put, we do not do interviews. We do human conversations, just like we did with this king, Emmanuel Bracy, today, because at the end of it all, if you are down with real conversations, then you found the right place on the We Outside live cast. All you got to do is just open that door. We leave it unlocked all the time, people. Have a good one. Thanks for tapping in. Coming at us later.
Yes, sir.